Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Film Odyssey podcast, where me and my brother trek through cinema on a quest to find the best film ever made. This season, we begin our journey by counting down the AFI top 100 films of all time. And tonight, we talk about A Night at the Opera. So, Randy, has this movie saved the 1930s for you?
It has definitely saved 1930s comedies for me.
Oh, yeah?
The Marx Brothers, the masters of their craft.
Masters of their craft, right?
They're pretty good.
Yeah, I can see why people say comedy holds up the best out of a lot of things, because these guys, timeless gags in this movie.
It was really good.
Yeah.
If I were you, I wouldn't pay it.
Yeah. Well, I guess to get this out of the way, I've watched this movie before on the Film Club podcast, and I had a negative reaction to it, but I think the reason was because Becky sold it to me as like, oh, it's one of the best comedies ever made, blah, blah, blah. And I had never seen really any Marx Brothers before that. So when I watched it, I assumed it'd have this like really good plot and story. But yeah, this movie ain't got a plot. It's just these guys.
Not a plot.
Not really.
Well, no. The plot is secondary to the comedy here.
The plot doesn't really matter all that much.
Yeah.
It's just an excuse for the Marx Brothers to just hit fucking bangers every 10 minutes.
Yes. Every 10 minutes, every 30 seconds.
Every 30 seconds.
I mean, at the beginning of the movie, it's just like one after another. Just bam, 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 bam.
It's Groucho Marx just riffing to the audience for like 30 unbroken minutes. Like that's
good.
How this movie starts.
It's good. I love it.
It was really good. You were howling behind me like as soon as Groucho Marx started talking.
Even before that, when she was like, "Oh, could you go page this Mr. Driftwood for me?" and the guy just literally starts screaming in the restaurant,
"Mr. Driftwood,
Mr. Driftwood,
Mr. Driftwood." Yep. It was good.
It was good. I loved it. It was so good.
I guess to give everybody some semblance of the plot that is here. So the story follows, well, the Marx Brothers. Groucho Marx playing this sly businessman, Mr. Otis B. Driftwood, who becomes this manager that wraps in Groucho and Harpo and the new tenor, Ricky?
Yeah, Ricardo.
And...
Not Ricardo, but just Ricardo.
Yeah. Wraps them all into this scheme to make him the lead tenor of the New York Opera House, and they're traveling to America. Comedy ensues. Bing bang. There's a romance thing going on with Rosa, and there's a douchebag named something with an L in Italian.
Lasardo or something?
Labardo?
Laspari. Rodolfo Laspari.
Yes. Sorry, there's...
Are they supposed to be coming from, like, Italy?
Yeah, they're supposed to be coming from an Italian opera house.
Okay.
It's just the thing where this is 1935, so no one is attempting to make this seem like Italy.
Yes.
Except Chico, who was putting on an Italian accent, but that was kind of his bit anyway.
Okay.
Yeah. So, where do you want to get started with this one?
Where do I want to get started with this one?
Yeah.
Let's just get into the Marx Brothers, you know, the whole, like, all their, like, bits and whatnot, like, they're just really good at comedy, you know, like,
yeah.
There was some bits where you've seen, like, them kind of, like, reenacted in other places here, like, especially the one with the small room.
Yeah, where they're just in this really small, I guess, cabin room on the cruise ship.
Yeah.
And at first it's like, oh, Groucho brings in this giant trunk and it opens up and there's Harpo and there's Chico and there's Ricardo and they're inside and they're like, oh, okay, there's like a lot of people in this room. And then the cleaning ladies come in.
Well,
the maids come in.
First they order the food.
With 2 hard-boiled eggs.
Yeah, 2 hard-boiled eggs. Make that 3.
No.
You know, and they order the food, which is a good bit.
With 2 hard-boiled eggs.
Yeah, 2 hard-boiled eggs. Honk honk. Make that a 3rd.
Yeah. And... it's really good. There's a lot of, like, that whole sequence when they're on the boat is, like, just banger after banger after banger.
That whole sequence where the cleaning ladies come in and then the what is it, like the
engineer comes in.
The engineer comes in.
Assistant comes in.
The engineer's assistant. Oh, do you want a manicure? Oh, sure, yes, of course.
Yeah, bring him in.
And then the food arrives.
Hey, is my Aunt Missy in here?
Oh,
no, but you're welcome to check.
It's my aunt in here. You know, but you're welcome to check.
I like that.
Spilling out of the room at the very end.
Yeah. And you know what's crazy? Like, the Marx Brothers, they had already made a bunch of films for Paramount at that point, because, God, they had worked in vaudeville forever and ever and ever. Because Groucho, I think, is the youngest, and he was born in 1890.
Mm-hmm.
So by the time this movie comes out in 35, he's what, 45 years old?
Yeah.
So they're all in their mid-40s, and they had already done vaudeville for, like, a solid decade before they ever started making films. And I think they only started doing films when sound came around in 27.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And that's because, as you can tell, the bits don't really work unless you can hear Groucho
Even
riffing.
though one of the brothers or whatever plays silent the whole movie.
Yeah, Harpo, he doesn't say anything throughout any of it.
Mm-hmm.
And even then, Chico is... I don't know if Chico works well without being able to hear the goofy accents kind of things. You know, I granted, all of them could do just physical comedy. Yeah. It's just, it works way better when you can hear them. It's not
especially because Groucho really plays off of all the funny bits and the, you know, all the different like little things he says, you know?
Yeah. Actually, that was a thing that the producer had kind of a problem with when he was bringing him into MGM.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Irving Thalberg, he noticed that the Marx Brothers Paramount films, when they were doing their bits, they were hitting everybody, so they would just punch down. And they're like, comedy doesn't work when you're punching down at the audience. You gotta punch up, right? Punch up at the upper crust or, like, on your level. When you punch down, it's kind of sad.
Mm-hmm.
And Groucho was like, that doesn't work. Everybody's funny. At least they're funny when I yell at them. And, you know, that was kind of a point of contention with him. But he got him on this, got him to just play how he wanted. And also, he recut the entire movie after it was released.
Oh, really?
Yeah, this movie was originally released, and I think it had an extra 15 or 30 minutes to it.
Oh, wow.
And then, basically, they watched and they're like, the pacing's all wrong. No one's laughing. And they went in and they just slaughtered this fucker in the editing bay. Cut 30 clean minutes out of it. I don't think any of it's ever been found. Maybe a few rolls. But after they did it and they released it, it became one of MGM's biggest hits of that year.
I see.
Yeah.
What's funny, though, is that I noticed that the editing in this movie was a little sloppy at points.
A little bit, right? You were able to kind of notice where stuff got just ripped out.
Yeah, like when they initially introduced like the opera house, right?
Yes.
They like cut to it, and they cut to it for like 4 seconds, right, of just the opera house itself, and then they cut to like the dressing room, and the music's there too, like it's cut with music.
Yeah. And
it's just like 3 or 4 seconds, and then it just cuts straight into like the like dressing room, and you're just like, was that it? Like,
is that all we got?
Well, I get we're at the opera house, right? Is that supposed to introduce the opera house? But why with the musical cue? And like, what the hell's going on? You know, like, why was that cut so bad?
It is weird, but like that's when you can kind of tell this movie was made in the editing bay.
Yeah,
because I'm looking at it and it's just a lot of bits after bits after bits, you know, throughout the movie, and I'm wondering how much of the original story is in there.
Kind of thing versus enough of the story.
No, there's enough of the story to get what's going on, but I don't know. I think it always feels like every time they start doing the big operatic singing stuff, I'm just like, all right, cool. I get to wait a minute until the Marx Brothers come back on.
I thought all the musical parts of the movie were good. I liked them as kind of like a way to break up the comedical like action or whatever without like trying to do something like drama in between or anything like that. You know, it was a good way to like break up the comedy, you know, kind of have you like just listen to something nice for a little bit and then like get back into it, you know? Yeah. Like I thought it was something great. Like I was like kind of like, oh wow, I've never seen this before, you know, where they just kind of like break it up with something like nice and a little smooth, just some music, you know. Yeah. Like in the middle of the movie where they're on the ship and they break out the piano and the harp and whatnot, and it's like that's a kind of like a long sequence, but I really liked it because it was kind of like, you know, gave you a little bit of like a reprieve, you know. It was like having an intermission in the movie. Yeah,
and I think that's really goes to the fact that the Marx Brothers, like, how talented they are, because they're playing their own instruments and all that stuff, and it was a point for them to play musical instruments when they were in their movies because, again, they're vaudeville performers, so they're just like, you know, we do tumbles, we do, you know, one-liners, we do gags, we do music, we do all this stuff. They do everything. And this is kind of a great display of their work.
At first, I was thinking, like, oh, maybe they, like, impose the music over him, but if they actually played their own music in this movie, like, that's amazing. Like, that's really cool.
I mean, Harpo got his name because he was, like, a master, like, harp player. And it's kind of funny because I would recommend people watch this just to watch Harpo play the harp, because I didn't know you could shred on a harp.
That was cool.
Because he's shredding on it like Eddie fucking Van Halen. Seriously, it's great. But yeah, there's
the piano sequence.
The piano sequence is really good, and then you know you have Harpo going and do the comedy bit where
he does a little like gag at the end of the piano bit, even though he's still playing the piano really well.
Yeah, there's just so many like little gags in this movie that it's really hard to talk about the movie like in whole without just going beat for beat all the jokes.
Yeah,
right?
and I don't want to spoil all the jokes, because I would recommend this movie. Let's get that out of the way.
Is this
This
the
movie's
first
great.
30s comedy you will recommend completely no caveat?
Yeah, this is just great. Like, if you just want to, like, have yourself a nice... if you want to have yourself a giggle mate, and like, listen to some good music in between, and just enjoy a nice movie, like, put on this movie. It's going to be great. You're going to love it.
Well,
2 thumbs up.
Two thumbs up.
2 thumbs up.
Two giant Groucho cigars up.
Yes, those cigars he's smoking through the entire movie.
I'm wondering where we can go from this, because I don't want to just walk away after only talking for like 15 minutes here.
Well, we could talk about so you have a problem with the plot. I can see that it is very thinly veiled,
It's
here
not-
that you're
it's-
just gonna shit all over the plot.
Yeah, look, I'll put it like this. I have noticed that a lot of comedies and musicals in general from this era, generally the plot only exists for either songs or gags. And it doesn't really matter. Like, there's a story here, don't get me wrong. There's a story, these guys, they're kind of doing their hijinks to get ahead at this opera house, and they're trying to get their buddy in as the main, like, singer. And, hijinks ensue. It's just the thing where it's like, okay, so they're in Italy, then they need to be on a cruise ship, then they need to somehow get through customs and do that by hiding as the 3 biggest, hiding a ZZ Top to get onto American soil. And then they need to do a switcheroo at the opera house to get them on. It's the thing where the plot for this really isn't that important, and sometimes I have issue with that in comedies.
Really?
Sometimes. Because I like it when the plot makes coherent sense from beat to beat.
You don't think it does in this movie?
I mean,
I think it's perfectly serviceable.
I think it's serviceable. It's just, I don't think it's great. And this is AFI.
So you wanted this to both be a nice, like, little slapstick, little Groucho, like
Comedy.
Marx Brothers comedy, and also be Sophie's Choice.
Look, like, it would be nice, but then we would have the perfect film. But you can see where I'm coming from, right? Like,
I can see where you're coming from. It's just like I was perfectly okay with it.
I was perfectly okay with it too. It's just, it's one of those things where the sensibility I look for is like, I would have liked this movie a lot better if it had more of a tighter plot, or just more, I don't know, if the script had another pass to it. But honestly, even without it, it's still a great movie. It's still fun.
You have to think, this plot survived, being cut
a lot
by the Marx Brothers afterwards.
Yeah. Hey, it goes to their talents, because I said this before on the Film Club review of this movie. It's one thing to watch a movie where it's, it's a joke you've seen 1,000 times.
Yeah.
But it's different when you see a master make a joke.
Yeah.
And it makes it sound like it's the first time. Because that's what all these gags are. You gotta think about it. This is 1935. 80% of these jokes are probably the first time people have seen them on a camera. Like, the thing where it's like a bunch of people get into the room and they tumble out. That's probably the first time we've seen it in cinema.
There's also the part where, he's doing the introductions where he's like, what's the lady's name?
Oh, Mrs. Claywood?
Claypool.
Claypool.
She's
Sorry,
like,
Claypool.
Mrs. Claypool, Mr. Gottlieb, Mr. Claypool, Mr. Gottlieb, Mr. Gottlieb, Miss Claypool.
Mr. Claypool, Mr. Gottlieb, Mr. Claypool, Mr. Gottlieb, Mr. Gottlieb, Mr. Claypool, Mr. Driftwood, Mr. Gottlieb, Mr. Claypool, Mr. Driftwood.
Yes, exactly.
It's a good bit. It's a good bit,
and that bit's been done to death.
Done to absolute death. And he makes it sound like it's the first time.
Yeah.
Because, again, these guys are master comedians. Now, I'm a Three Stooges guy at heart, because I love slapstick. But I'm like, I could see Three Stooges getting inspired by the Marx Brothers. I could see, like, almost every comedian or comedy group since these guys being influenced by them.
Definitely comedy group.
Groups.
Just about any comedy group, like, would have to be like, yeah, we've seen a couple of Marx Brothers movies, it's the way it goes in the business.
Right, like, these guys are just great. I have a question for you. So this is a comedy, right?
Yeah, it's a comedy.
And this is dealing with something a little bit interesting, right? It's these artists trying to, get their place in, the art world of the opera. Do you think there's a deeper theme here at all? Or do you think it's just pure comedy?
A deeper theme here. Let's dive into this. So, the plot does have to deal with, the 2 lovers, and there's, like, this third guy who's, like, the more influential guy who's, like, trying to butt into them, and, like, going to America. I don't know. Any deeper themes?
Well, I mean,
I'm trying to think. Like
Rodolfo is trying to use his position,
his position, right,
to try and
get
entice Rosa, and
get her away from Ricardo, who's like. I think Rodolfo's kind of like seeing that, like, you know, that whole like class structure thing where it's like he's at the top, Rose is just below him, and then Ricardo should be like way below them.
Yeah.
Right. And he's like, you know, why would you want to go after Ricardo? You know, I'm like, you know, hugely, apparently like, you know, renowned enough to where like the Americans like openly accept him.
Yeah.
Right. To where it's like, they're not even skeptical. They're like, oh, he's going to be performing. Like, let's go see that shit.
Yeah.
So he's got to be world renowned at this point. And using that kind of, like, power influence to be like, you know, hey, Rosa, like, you gotta be with me. Like, just look at what I can do. Like, he's able to get her on the boat to America, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just because he's Rodolfo, you know? He can do that. He's got the power.
Yeah, and then you have the Marx Brothers coming in, and you have Groucho playing Driftwood, who is somebody who seems to have scrounged his way into the upper crust through, like, conning and shenanigans. And then you have, like, Chico and Harpo, who are playing these basically stagehands, low-grade guys trying to climb up. It's almost an interesting story about, like, how you can go from, like, you know, rags to riches with this. And, like, there might actually be something about, like, class in this movie that I think is, you know, pretty apparent.
Definitely, I think you could glean something about class in this movie. But I do kind of believe that, like, it's just a comedy. Like, at its heart,
it's one of those things where, like, you can dig a class interpretation out of this movie, but let's be honest, they're just here to gag.
Let's just be real. It's just a nice, good old fashioned like comedy, you know.
All right. Well, who's your favorite Marx Brothers then?
Groucho, obviously.
Groucho.
It's gotta be Groucho. Like he's got the best gags.
He does. You don't like Harpo? Harpo, where he does the whole Errol Flynn thing, where he's flying around the.
Well, that's fun and whatnot, but like it's fun. It's like, you know, it's pretty funny, but I'm not gonna be like howling at it. It's just like a cool visual thing he does. You know, I'm like pretty impressed by like all those stunts they did.
Yeah.
Near the end of the movie in the opera house. You know, I'm not sure if like, you know, how safe they were. You know, this is the 30s.
Dude, they used to fire live rounds at you in the 30s.
They didn't have blanks.
They did. But
they did?
Yeah, they did have blanks back in the 30s. They were just like, it doesn't look good on camera.
Oh.
Dude, James Cagney got shot at a bunch of times when he was doing gangster movies back in the day. Like, he had to start the Screen Actors Guild for them to stop shooting him with live rounds.
Alright, well, that's something I didn't know.
But
you know. Like, you know, I'm not sure, like, how developed, like, you know, like, fall pads were at that time, you know? Like,
probably not great.
Like, you know, the part where he, like, has to, like, fall down the screen or whatever during the movie, it's just, like, if he just missed the screen a little bit, like...
Probably dead.
Would he just, like, hit hardwood floor or concrete or something? Like,
you know.
Did they have a trampoline? Like...
There's stuff.
Yeah.
You know.
I'm like, did they use harnesses? Probably fucking not.
Yeah.
But, like, it was really cool, but, like, Groucho's just, like, all the little one-liners and little bits and, like, strings of, like, one joke into another, and they make, like, an arcing joke, right? Where they all talk about, like, one thing, or they're all, like, related.
It feels like Groucho's brand of comedy probably is the one that translates the best to modern sensibilities, right?
Yeah.
Whereas, like, Harpo's more like a living cartoon. Right?
Yeah.
You know, hits people with the mouth, they fall over, you know, does the high-flying falutin stuff. And then it's like, I feel like Chico is almost playing the straight man in these, but he's still kind of goofy.
Yeah, he's playing like Groucho is like over the top. He's like goofy all the time, like just way over, like the whole, like at the very, like he does the things that like seem like completely unrealistic. Like the whole thing at the very beginning where he's talking, where he asks the guy for the check. And he's like, $9.40, if I were you, I wouldn't pay this. And he gives the check to the lady and then just goes and talks to Miss Claypool.
Just gets to the next table over and orders breakfast.
Yeah, and orders breakfast. Like, that's not going to happen. But, like, Chico plays, like, more realistic almost. Like, the more, like, middleman here between the two. Mm. You know, he plays, like, what I would think is probably the hardest role out of the three. Because, like, Groucho gets to just kind of, like, play it up. He gets to riff the entire movie. Harpo gets to play it up by all the physical comedy. And then Chico kind of has to play the in-between, you know? He's got to play the, like, slightly more realistic, a little bit of physical. He has to be the guy who can play off both of them at once in the same scene. Yeah. Which is so difficult, right? Because they're both doing so different brands of comedy. Mm-hmm. And in
I guess, for one great example, when they're in the cabin and it's all the people coming in, you know, at first Chico's playing off a Harpo who's doing the whole, like, I'm passed down and just falling on top of the maids and stuff like that. And then he goes over to Groucho and he has to, you know, have the comeback with his one-liner, and then he has to go back to the physical and all that stuff. It's really just a testament to how great these guys are together.
Yeah, it's really good. And also, like, another one where they're reading off the contract. And that's kind of like where Chico, like, starts, like, coming into his own in the movie, right? Because we've already been introduced to Groucho. We've already been introduced to Harpo. And then, like, Chico's, like, reading off the contract with Groucho, right? And they're, like, playing off each other. And he's like, I don't like that part of it. And then
just tear it off. Yeah, like, how much contract you got left? I got about 1.5 feet. I don't like that. All right, rip off 6 inches. All right, there you go.
Hey, how did my contract get smaller than yours?
It must be cold in here. Like, they're just hitting, like, it's that kind of brand of comedy where it's just like somebody says something, immediate comeback. You know, the witticisms in this are great. The Marx Brothers are awesome.
Yeah, it's just, it's good. I loved, like, basically all the movie. Like, the plot was totally serviceable to me. The music was really good.
Yeah.
The jokes were just, like, one after another after another. And I can see, really, like, the influences of this movie and other movies I've seen, you know? It's great. I love it.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. I'm just happy we finally found a 30s movie that you actually liked. I didn't think that was going to happen, to be honest.
I mean, maybe we could compare this movie to the other 30s comedies we've seen.
I mean, yeah, unfortunately, everybody, this is probably going to be a short episode. It'll be pretty consistent with comedies most of the time. They're just generally shorter.
Well, yeah, that's just like it's not a drama, so there's not all this, like, stuff to glean off of the plot, you know? Like, this is just a movie that's supposed to be just enjoyed at, like, more of the surface level. Like, digging more, like, deeper into the movie would be like if I wanted to make a comedy, I would dig deeper into the movie. Which I don't really make anything.
I mean, honestly, if you were going to make a comedy, you should probably study this film, because this film's like 90 years old and it's still funny.
It was really funny.
Which, surprising as hell. But on that note, it's spawned in the AFI because it's coming in at, I believe, 85. And it's passed up Bringing a Baby. I'd probably put Swing Time in there for, like, musical comedy.
Yeah.
Are those the only two like comedies we've had so far? Straight comedy?
Yeah, just Bringing a Baby and Swing Time. Yeah, that's about it. And, you know, it's good because all three of these are, like, you know, in the same time
era.
Yeah, in the same era.
I mean, Swing Time is definitely more into, like, a musical dance movie than it is a straight comedy.
Well, I think we're kind of seeing, like, almost like an evolution here, right? Even though Night of the Opera came before either of the other ones.
Well, you know.
But, you know, kind of like in our own viewing order, like an evolution, right? We see Swing Time first, which is kind of like, it's more of a musical than a comedy. And the comedy bits, you know, kind of hit or miss, you know, kind of like have like a really kind of like stale feeling to them sometimes.
Yeah.
We get to Bringing Up Baby, in which there's no musical bits, right?
It's just a straight screwball comedy.
It's got musical bits, right? They sing in the movie.
Do they sing in the movie?
Yeah, don't they?
I don't think in Bringing Up Baby.
Maybe I'm mistaken.
Yeah.
But, you know, so in Bringing Up Baby, it's a straight comedy, right? No musical bits in the movie, so it's straight comedy. And they kind of, like, evolve the comedic bits throughout the movie. Like, they start off feeling kind of stale, and then they get more going, and then you're like, okay, like, I kind of get it. Like, these are now, like, timeless jokes. Like, everything's hitting, right?
Like, it hits the end of the movie, it's just nothing but sweet shit.
And then we've evolved to Night at the Opera, where it's got musical bits, right? But they take a backseat to the comedy, the opposite of what happens in Swing Time. Mm. And the comedy is good from the get-go. Like,
wall to wall, right?
Wall to wall, you know. They don't need any kind of, like, real, like, premise. Like, they have premises for the jokes or whatever, but they don't really need much to go off of. Like, I'm pretty sure you could give a paper bag to the Marx Brothers and they make it, like, a 20-minute freaking comedy out of it.
Dude, they made a joke out of the first meeting with the producer of this movie.
Really?
He made him wait 20 minutes, like, too long, so when he got into his office where the Marx Brothers were waiting, they were sitting in their underwear playing poker, and they had destroyed his office completely. Like, their, like, plants are upside down, his paperwork's everywhere, and he walks in and he's like, what the hell are you guys doing? And they're just like, you made us wait too long, so we decided to have a card game, you know?
Mm.
It's one of those things where these guys were also just clowns in real life.
Yeah.
So it probably really helped them.
It
came really naturally. Where, unlike in Bringing Up Baby, where Katharine Hepburn wasn't, like, a natural comedic actress.
Yeah.
She's a dramatic actress. Cary Grant, yeah, he did, like, vaudeville and was, you know, a funny guy, but I don't know how many straight comedies he was in through his career, because I remember him from, like, North by Northwest, you know,
yes.
like the Hitchcock stuff. But with these guys are just straight comedians, and it's wall to wall. Like, I know in Bringing Up Baby, you had issue with the cringy humor.
Yeah, the cringy, real stale humor, you know.
Is there anything in Night of the Opera that is cringy at all to you? Anything.
That's like, you know, kind of like, I had to like sneer back at it, you know, because it was kind of, I don't think so. There wasn't really anything like that in this movie, because like at the very beginning where he, like, you know, he gets the check and he's just like, if I were you, I wouldn't pay it, and like throws the check at her. Like, at first I was like, is it going to be like another one of those where this guy just kind of like basically like bullies or is like mean to everybody around him, and it's supposed to come off as funny. Yeah. But then he just goes into more jokes with Miss Claypool. I'm like, okay, it's supposed to be like more like he's like that person was only there for the joke. Like that is not like a real character, you know, that is like literally just like a catalyst. That person was a prop in that joke, you know. So he's not gonna be mean to anybody in the main cast or like anything like that, you know, and like come off as being like this kind of like shrewd, awful person, right? Like Katharine Hepburn did in
the first half of Bringing Up Baby.
First part of Bringing Up Baby. Well, not the first half. First like 15 minutes.
First like 15 minutes. Yeah, sure.
Where it's like really bad. But then it's like, you know, so I kind of like got into it much faster, and it's just like, you know, like 20 seconds later, I was into it, you know. I was like, okay, no, it's not going to be like that, you know, like these jokes are, and then nothing really like that happened throughout the whole movie of like him just doing like these like awful things to people, and you're supposed to go like, is that a joke?
Are you just being mean?
Yeah.
That goes with Thalberg's thing. It was like, you can't be mean to everybody. You can only be mean to people who are up, so you're always punching up at like the rich people.
Sure, yeah.
Because that works, right? Because that's still like a foundational thing of comedy now.
Yes.
You know, you're never supposed to punch down at people, because then you're just being a bully. You punch us, so you know you're the underdog, right?
Yeah, but I mean, I have to agree with the Marx Brothers here. Like, sure, you should usually punch up, but I mean, like, everybody can be funny.
Yeah. Everybody can be funny when Groucho's making fun of them.
True. What about the production for this movie? What do we got for the production?
The production of this movie is actually pretty bare bones, because they come over to MGM from Paramount. They made a bunch of movies. This is the first MGM movie they ever did, and honestly, their MGM movies are the best of their catalog. When this movie came out,
they evolved when they went from Paramount to MGM.
Yeah, at least in my opinion. There is one movie I think you're going to be really interested in. It's not on the AFI though, and it's I think it's A Night in Casablanca, where they do the Marx Brothers riff on Casablanca.
Wait, really? I'd love to see it.
Yeah, I think it came out in 45, so it's like 10 years after this, but I think it's just at the ass end of MGM's run with them. But yeah, so they do a bunch of comedies. Biggest comedy group ever. They're the only comedy duo or trio or whatever to be in the AFI's 50 greatest stars of all time list. And they make this movie, huge box office hit, but because it's 1935 and it's a comedy, critics are like, this is not an awards movie. So it wins no awards, is not nominated for anything.
Do they still appreciate it for being a good comedy?
They said it was the best Marx Brothers movie when it was released. People praised the hell out of it. They thought it was great, super good. Every joke landed. They thought the singing was good. It's just...
They were just like, it's a comedy.
35 comedies. They don't really, you know, appreciate those. And, I mean, that's the thing.
Well, it's like, even today, like, you know, when's the last time, like, a comedy's been like nominated for like best film, you know?
Right. Like how genre flicks are just not appreciated in
just about any time period.
Yeah. What is it? It took Peter Jackson 3 times to win Best Picture with the Lord of the Rings movie. What is it? Silence of the Lambs won Best Picture in like 90 something, and we have yet to get another horror film win. We had what is it? Get Out nominated, and that was the last time a horror film was nominated.
As we got.
Yeah, unless you want to count Parasite as a horrar film. I don't think I would.
You would say it's more of a drama?
I would think so. There are some horror elements to it, but I would have to rewatch the movie, because I remember it a lot more as like a thriller, like a Hitchcockian kind of thing, more than like a horror film, right? Sure. Like Exorcist was, which was the first horror film ever nominated for Best Picture. insane, right? It was 70 something before we got a horror film nominated for Best Picture. No Dracula, no Frankenstein, no nothing.
Well, I'm sure better movies came out those years.
Motherfucker, we still talk about Frankenstein. That movie's 90 years old, we still talk about it.
Well, yeah, because it's Frankenstein, not like the character, you know? Like, I'm sure if I watched the movie today, I'd be like, yeah, it was alright.
Nah, dude, that movie's banging.
It's banging?
I've watched it recently, and that movie bangs. That movie's sick. It's also a tight 60 minutes.
60 minutes?
It is uber short, and it is surprising how good it is for how short it is. But, yeah, so this movie, comparatively for all the comedies on the AFI, I would say this is definitely the best we've seen so far.
Are there any more comedies on the list?
Yeah, actually,
does it get better than this?
There's another Marx Brothers movie.
Oh.
Way up the list. Duck Soup, the shortest film on the list at 68 minutes.
Oh, that sounds like fun.
That one's, everybody says, is their greatest film, period, bar none, end of sentence.
So they have multiple movies on this list.
Multiple movies, yeah. They have this.
Would you look at that?
Yeah. And we have...
I'm actually kind of not surprised, honestly.
With how good
they're really good.
They're real fucking good.
They're really funny. And also, it's like one of those things where, like, comedies are underappreciated.
Yeah.
And comedies are, like, one of the only movies you can just, like, slap on without having to, like, you know, get in the mood for them. And you can just be like, oh, yeah, I'll just have myself a giggle. Right. And that'll be great, you know? It's like something... Like, a comedy is a type of a movie you can put on while doing something else.
Yeah.
I'm not going to put on Ben-Hur and do something else. I'm not going to put on Sophie's Choice and go do something else, you know? It's just... But you can do that with comedies.
Yeah.
That's why the plot isn't that important.
I think that's probably true. I think that's kind of the nature of comedies. I mean, with, I guess... the greatest comedic director still alive, Mel Brooks.
Yep.
Like, with Blazing Saddles, Young Frankenstein, those movies, the plots are just riffs on the genre.
Yes.
But you can come into that movie at any point and get a laugh out of it. Any point.
Yeah, you can just, like, if I walked in halfway through this Marx Brothers movie, I'd think it was hilarious. You know, it doesn't matter that I didn't watch the first half, you know? Like, also, these type of movies are the movies that you can put on with just, like, the boys, have yourself a beer, and just have a great time, you know? It's like...
It's also a thing that goes into where these kind of comedies, even though they're, like, old, black and white, you don't have to have the whole, like, well, gentlemen, let me put up my glasses for my pretentious movie night. It's like, no, this is actually, like, something...
we're not watching Metropolis here.
We're not watching Metropolis. I mean, this isn't like a Charlie Chaplin film where it's a silent movie, so you kind of have to give people the thing. It's a silent comedy, so you have to pay attention.
Yeah.
But this is like, no, you can just like, I'm going to throw this on. We're going to watch it. It's going to be fun. Have a couple drinks, you know, and just riff with it. It'll be fun.
Yeah, it's just great. It's just like a real, like, kind of like a nice breath of fresh air here on the AFI, to where it's just like, just a nice comedy. It's kind of like Yankee Doodle Dandy, where it's just kind of a nice movie.
Again,
Yankee Doodle Dandy, like, isn't the greatest thing ever, but it's nice.
That's the thing. I think this is keeping on our streak of mentioning Yankee Doodle Dandy in every
fucking episode.
But Yankee Doodle Dandy is the bar I measure all movies because it's so nice, and it's just such a pleasant, easy, fun watch.
Yeah, I'd say pleasant is a good way to describe Yankee Doodle Dandy. It's a pleasant movie. It's not great. It's not bad.
It's not by any means.
And this movie, I think, was a little bit better than that. It's better than pleasant. This movie's good.
This I say would be...
It's fun.
This I'd say would probably be the best 30s film we've seen so far. Probably.
Yeah, it's probably the best 30s film we've seen so far. And, I mean, it's definitely going to be in, like, my top 5, maybe? I don't know. It's really funny.
I would really say like this is easily in my top 10 so far.
Oh yeah, easily. I mean, we've only gotten 15 movies in, or 16 or whatever.
Something like that. But I mean, I'd say easy top 10, probably going to be a lot higher, maybe in the top 5. But for all the movies we have seen so far, you're saying this stays on, goes up, down, over, out.
Stays on, and I'm going to be a little bit reserved about putting it farther up, you know, because... the biases. It is just a comedy. You hate to see it here tonight. It's just a comedy, but it's really good comedy.
It's the best comedy we've seen so far.
It is the best comedy we've seen so far, and probably the best one we're going to see for a while. I mean, I don't know when we're getting the next comedy or anything, but we can still talk about Night of the Opera.
Yeah, yes. Do you want to still talk about Night of the Opera? You got anything else? Anything else before we do the wrap up?
Well, just because you don't have anything doesn't mean I don't have anything.
Do you have anything? Because I don't have anything. Do you have anything?
I might have something.
What do you have? Is it in the pocket right there?
We're not doing a bit.
We're not doing a bit, I swear.
I swear it's not a bit.
See, he's doing a bit. I am not doing a bit.
I'm not doing a bit. You're doing a bit.
No. I got 2 bits. You got 1 bit. So you got to be doing a bit to get my bit, right?
What?
What?
All I get is what's from these people.
Every time. But yeah, so...
Well, it's just like... The movie's also pretty inspirational, right? Like, you watch Night at the Opera, and you feel like being a little bit of a clown for a day, you know? Like, I think, like, the Marx Brothers, they just, like, have, like, this kind of essence about them. This, like, something, like, where it's just, like...
They've transcended the movie.
They've transcended the movie to where it's just, like, they're like, inspirational artists, almost. Like, it's something that, like, doesn't really happen that often in movies, where you watch something and you're like, that's it, man. I want some of that.
You're watching the movie and you're just like, I can see 90 years worth of comedians stealing from these guys.
Yes.
And these guys are still funnier than half those suckers.
More than half, easily.
Easily more than half?
Easily more than half. Well, I mean, you have to think about all the comedians you've never heard of.
No, that's true. There's a lot of them.
True. But it's just, you know, something that doesn't happen that often in movies. Like, you know, what are, like, the performances you've seen in the movies we've watched so far, where it's just like, wow, I wish I could be like that, you know? I wish I could do that.
Where you're watching and you're just like I'm just so impressed by how good this person is.
Yeah.
I mean, Meryl Streep's performance in Sophie's Choice, I'm like, I am impressed somebody is that good of an actor.
You're like, I could only wish to be half as good as she is.
Yeah, or, I mean, honestly, even thinking about it, like...
You could only wish to be half as good as the dancing in Pulp Fiction? No, it's a joke. This is just a joke.
Yeah. I wish there was just, like, even the one actor today that could deliver lines as good as Henry Fonda in 12 Angry Men. I wish there was one actor that good at just delivering dialogue and just making it the most captivating thing you've ever heard.
True.
Like, granted, all the films we've seen so far, all, like, 15 of them, are straight bangers. There's something amazing out of all of them.
Yeah, they all have at least a little bit of something that makes them what they are.
Right? It's like, come on, Randy. Like, even though you're like, Dinky ain't that good, you wish you could just be
I wish
half as charismatic as James Cagney.
Yeah, half as strong with my back to carry a movie like that, you know, onto the AFI Top 100. You know, I wish I had that kind of, you know, those kind of, like, legs and back muscles to do that, you know.
The kind of raw talent to do that in tap
raw
dance.
talent, you know. To do that. Or like it was Swing Time, right? The dance sequences.
Dude, could you imagine you could dance like Fred Astaire? Could you imagine you could dance like Ginger Rogers? Do that shit backwards and in heels?
Good lord.
Jesus, you'd have a career forever.
But I mean, the Marx Brothers, like, with comedy, like, comparing them, like, they are as good, if not better, with comedy than all of these actors are with their own craft. With their own craft, you know, with Fred Astaire and the dancing, or with Sophie's Choice and the dramatic acting. You know, it's like, with comedy, like, the Marx Brothers are as good, if not better.
The Marx Brothers are probably some of, if not the greatest comedians in film history. Like, they would be...
I mean, I would be hard-pressed to find a better comedic group.
Comedic group?
Group, yeah. A package deal, if you will.
A package deal. A Laurel and Hardy.
Maybe like
a Three Stooges.
The Monty Python troupe?
Ooh.
Because they're a group.
Yeah. Dude, honestly, like, that. I guess that's the real question.
Alright, real shit.
Is Holy Grail the greatest comedy of all time?
Monty Python and the Holy Grail?
Is it the greatest comedy of all time?
It's really fucking funny.
Is it? Look, because
I think it might like be better than Night at the Opera, but purely because it's like it runs for longer.
Pure absurdity.
Well, no, it runs for longer. Like, they get more jokes.
Is it better than Blazing Saddles?
Monty Python and the Holy Grail?
Yeah. Better than Blazing Saddles?
I think it's probably better than Blazing Saddles. And I think Night of the Opera is probably better than Blazing Saddles, too.
Really?
Yeah.
Everybody says Blazing Saddles is Mel Brooks' greatest film. I don't know, actually, if that's true, because I really like Young Frankenstein, but Blazing Saddles probably actually is his most, like, influential best film.
Yeah, it definitely has to be. But it's just like, you know, Blazing Saddles kind of, like, harps on the same joke the whole time.
Well, the other thing is, speaking of Mel Brooks, I could see Mel Brooks taking huge inspirations from Night of the Opera and the Marx Brothers.
True.
Because there's a lot of that, like, fast one-liner dialogue when, like, from Mel Brooks himself when he's in those scenes.
Yeah.
And you can see a lot of, like, that weird kind of slapsticky comedy going on. I could see Mel Brooks kind of throwing all these Marx Brothers gags into Blazing Saddles, mixing them up, and adding his own humor onto it.
True. There's a lot of that, like, where somebody will, like, say something and then another person responds to them as if what they said was, like, literal.
Yeah.
You know, and it's, like, kind of, like, disjointed, like, kind of funny humor, you know, where it's like, aha, you know.
It's good.
Like, that stuff happens a lot in these Marx Brothers. Like, Groucho does that all the time in this movie. And, like, I've seen Mel Brooks do it in a bunch of movies. You know? Like, that happens all the time. And it's just like, you know, that kind of humor, you know, is great and it's timeless. And the Marx Brothers did it amazingly.
I would have to agree. I would say this movie is probably totally and completely timeless. I feel this movie is...
Is this the most influential movie we've watched so far?
Most influential we've watched so far?
Yeah, it might be.
I might even say absolutely. The only other movie I could even think approaches it is, oddly to say, maybe French Connection, or maybe even Bringing Up Baby, just because that's like one of the first screwball comedies, and that was a huge thing for like decades and decades.
Yeah, but I mean, even Night of the Opera predates that.
Honestly, yeah, Night of the Opera is probably the most influential film you've seen so far. Just because you can actually trace this movie's, like, lineage all the way through, like, Brooks, probably even all the way down to, like, today. Like, I could see, like, you know, Key and Peele probably taking Marx Brothers bits.
You think Will Ferrell?
Oh, God, the entire SNL cast owes the Marx Brothers a debt that is
True.
Unimaginable.
True. SNL is basically just a huge homage to freaking the Marx Brothers.
Just done 90% worse. 100% of the time.
Well, sometimes, you know, the jokes are so bad they're funny.
So Family Guy.
Oh, God.
Right? Like, actually, wait a minute. Seth MacFarlane has riffed on the Marx Brothers literally before.
Oh, true. Yeah, actually.
Yeah,
I didn't even think about that.
The Simpsons riff on it. I think almost every comedy group I can think of now, or even every comedy like entity, has probably riffed on the Marx Brothers at least once.
It's probably like an in-joke in like comedy circles, right? To where like they all understand that they're all influenced by the Marx Brothers, you know?
I mean, here's the thing. You know the mustache glasses and the nose thing you see in every single like novelty shop?
Yeah.
And how they're called Groucho glasses?
Yeah, it's all Groucho Marx.
I had no idea who Groucho Marx was for decades, but I knew what those glasses were called.
Oh, true, yeah, same.
Yeah, so I'm like, I feel like that part is just ubiquitous with pop culture. Just these guys, this movie is just probably the best movie we've actually seen so far, based purely on influence and actual quality over time.
Yeah, maybe. I think I'd say 12 Angry Men, personally. I find it better.
Mm.
But, like, Night at the Opera is just, like, way more influential. Just straight up.
Yeah, this movie probably carries the influence, like, of 90 years of comedy on its back, no problem.
Because even, like, not necessarily referencing, like, the Marx Brothers and just referencing this movie, I've seen gags from this movie in probably 5 or 10 different movies, you know? It's just, like, that happen all the time.
Yeah, how many TV shows? Airplane's probably taken so much from this.
True.
All those Leslie Nielsen comedies, you know, Airplane, Naked Gun, all that stuff. It's really weird because the movie itself is so, like, simple. The gags are, like, not super complex. They're good. They're great.
Well, some of them are a little complex, you know, especially, like, in the opera house where they're, like, flying around. Like, that's a pretty complex gag.
Yeah, it's a pretty complex gag. But the thing is, it's, like, looking at it, you're like...
the screens coming up and down, you know? We've seen that in a bunch of movies.
Yes! I think I watched a shitty comedy the other day. Cannot remember the name of it for the life of me, but I saw that exact gag because they were in, like, a theater or something.
Yeah.
I watched this movie and I'm like, man, this movie's kind of weird. But when you think about it, it's like, this movie is so insanely influential, you can't even see it unless you just start... I'm only going to watch, like, 10 comedies after this, and I can pick out a Marx Brothers bit in every last one of them.
Probably.
Without even question.
Easily. And it's just kind of like one of these things where it's like, you know, we anticipated this episode to end in, like, the first 20 minutes, you know? But
and then we finally hit the influence mark, and we're like,
and it's just like,
it's deep.
Wow, it's so, like, the movie, like, on the surface level, there's not much to talk about, right? Like, it's just a nice comedy. It's got a simple plot, you know, lots of good jokes. And that's basically it. But, I mean, this is a wildly successful movie with a wildly successful 3 comedians in it, you know, the Marx Brothers.
Yeah.
And, you know, it just kind of, like, keeps that, like, little idea where it's just like, you know, you don't need to make 1917 to make a good movie. You don't need to make the Lord of the Rings trilogy or any of these, like, you don't need to make Avatar to make a good movie. You can just make a nice, good little comedy, real quick, and it comes out good. Like, these things are great.
I mean, to go back to the movie we think should be on the AFI, most and foremost than any other film, like Tropic Thunder. That is a one and done, like, raunchy, like, comedy.
Yeah, but also that movie had, like, a giga budget, as far as I know.
Yeah, it had a pretty decent budget. It got Tom Cruise, for God's sakes.
And they also got to blow up the forest like it was in fucking...
like it was Apocalypse Now.
Like it was Apocalypse Now.
Yeah, but that was intentional that time.
True.
Yeah. But I mean, I'm trying to think of, like, comedies nowadays that come out in cinemas that are even close to, like, this kind of successful. Okay, can you name a comedy that's come out in the last 10 years that didn't star an SNL alum that you thought was a good movie?
Didn't star an SNL alum?
Yeah,
I couldn't name one.
Couldn't name a single.
There probably isn't one.
There probably isn't one?
There probably isn't one. They're all made by SNL alums now.
Yeah.
Like, you name one.
I mean,
You're the movie expert here. Why are you asking me to name shit?
yeah, because you're the man of the people. I mean, looking at, like...
I'm the man of the modern comedies. I don't even like modern comedies. A hot take here. I don't really like Talladega Nights. I think it's too dumb.
You're dumb.
But no, I think the movie, like, the jokes in it, they just get too dumb. Like, it's too dumb.
I mean, like, I think Step Brothers is actually a great movie because it's that right level of being a dumb movie.
SNL alums.
That's true, SNL alums. Oh, shit, they're actually past 10 years now, because I was going to say, like, Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz, but those are
true.
Older than 10 years old.
Yeah.
And they're not American
Their most
films.
recent one.
They're,
the
World's End.
World's End. I don't think that's 10 years old now.
Yeah. Fuck, I'm...
Is it 10 years old now?
I think it is.
Fuck.
Like, unironically, like... America, we need your help. Can anybody think of a great comedy in league with, like, Night at the Opera, Blazing Saddles, fucking Monty Python? A great
It doesn't even need to be that good, but, like, close.
A solid, just crowd pleaser, hits everybody comedy. Anything.
I don't know. I can't really think of any right now. Like,
I'm trying to think of the last comedy I saw in a theater.
Oh God, no. I just,
that's a hard pass.
That's a hard pass. I don't think I've ever seen a comedy in the theater. Like, oh no, we have before, but that was like when there was like the Scary Movie era,
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but
those have not aged well at all.
They have not.
Those
only half of those movies are still like, not even talking about like half the movies isn't like 1 and 2 maybe still watchable. I mean, like, no, like there's like probably like 45 minutes of 2 that's still watchable. It
is astounding to me how comedy has changed and evolved since the Marx Brothers. Like, this is what this podcast is now actually about. Comedy since the Marx Brothers, right? Because these guys are hitting old style gags. They're classic comedy. They're doing, one-liners. They're doing pratfalls, all that stuff. Super basic comedy. And now we have gone so far. Like, I'm trying to think of recent comedies that were major successes. Like, okay, I know this movie's like almost 20 years old at this point, but like Superbad. Like those Judd Apatow kind of comedies. Superbad, Knocked Up, Pineapple Express, those like The Interview, those like Seth Rogen and James Franco comedies. Yeah. And I'm like, those movies, God, do not hold up nearly as well. And those are like 10 years old. Those are in the moment comedies.
Yeah, they're in the moment comedies. A lot of comedies nowadays are like referential comedies.
Yeah.
Where they make a lot of their jokes by referring to other things. And that's like a big part of like SNL too, which is probably why a lot of these SNL alum movies have a lot of referential comedies that kind of date them.
Yeah.
And make them like there's not much that dates Night at the Opera, even though it's in black and white.
That's actually true, because watching the movie, I'm like, I couldn't really tell you what year this takes place in. It's one of those things where it's like, I know it's 1935, it's Marx Brothers, so whatever, but I'm like, this could take place anywhere from the turn of the century to, like, World War II. Anywhere in that, like, 45-year span, this movie can exist.
Like, the only part that kind of gives it away is that he's in, like, a horse-drawn carriage at one point.
Well, yeah, but he's just balling out of his mind in that top hat.
True.
You see that top hat and cigar? Balling out of his mind.
Balling out of his mind. This takes place during the 80s.
Right.
Just joking.
Come on. Oh.
No, I couldn't take place during the 80s. Nobody got mugged in New York.
Oh,
Oof,
yeah,
ooh.
man. Oof.
Is there anything else left to talk about? I mean, they're just supremely influential, but other than that...
The movie itself is amazing, great. I would highly recommend it to anybody. I feel like a total dick for saying anything bad about when I reviewed it on the Film Club. Hindsight, I'm like...
Did you not think it was funny on the Film Club?
No, the gags that worked still worked.
Okay.
The thing is I think I went in with my expectations for a totally different movie. I went in thinking it was going to be a more modern comedy where there's still a pretty cohesive plot and story through line and not just gag every however many minutes. But this is like, no. The plot is here for the Marx Brothers to flex their comedic muscles across this stage.
Yes.
And knowing that now, this movie's great. Not knowing it was it threw me, but it's neither here nor there. But next week we're gonna be talking about Easy Rider, and I think you're gonna hate it. I ain't gonna lie.
I hope I don't hate it. I really dislike kind of ragging on movies on the list, even though it's you got to do it.
So,
if the movie's not doing so hot, you're like top 100 American films of all time. Psh, give me a break,
Yeah,
you got to do it. I got to be honest, But I hope Easy Rider. I watch it. I'm like, wow, this is amazing. Blew my mind. I've never seen anything like it. But we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen Easy Rider a handful of times, and I actually have pretty good opinions on it. I can see the influence on it. I think it's probably one of the most important films of the new Hollywood age.
Do you think it's like a film fan's film? Like me as like the layman, I won't particularly enjoy it.
See, that I think that's where it is, because I've not seen many people who weren't like into film come to the movie and enjoy it, but I've seen people who are really into film come to it and be like, I appreciate it. I've yet to see anybody say it's their favorite movie. I've seen people say, I appreciate it. I think it's a great film.
I appreciate it. That's
the thing.
I don't like that. I don't like the sound of, I appreciate the movie.
I appreciate the artistry on display.
Oh, God. Maybe I will hate it.
But, no, it is a pretty decent movie. Jack Nicholson, one of his earliest roles, so you get to see young Jack Nicholson, man. And also a young Dennis Hopper doing a shit ton of drugs.
I mean, did he ever not do drugs?
I can't think of any, but it'll be fine.
Okay.
But yeah, so it'll be fun. That's going to be next week. And if you wanted to listen to that, you should check us out on Spotify, Google Podcast, Anchor FM, anywhere you get your podcast. We're all there under the Film Odyssey podcast. You can also find us on our YouTube channel, In the Frame. That's right, In the Frame. Best place you can go. It has this podcast, the Film Odyssey, as well as the Film Club podcast. Leave a like or ring the bell, as the cool kids say.
Oh God!
All right,
I'm dying of cringe.
You can.
Oh, that's the evolution of comedy now. It's all just memes now.
It's all just cringe humor. The Office has ruined America. The Office has ruined comedy.
Oh God! Don't even get me started. We're about to record a whole 50 more minutes after this, but anyways, I hope you all have a great night, and especially at the opera.
Is that your last word on the subject?
No, that was pretty cringe. I'm dying of cringe.
Yeah, have a good week, everybody.